Clicky clock goes tick tock, freezing time as it rides down your block. Cause it's timeless. Cause it's timeless.
What up, guys? We're back at it again with another podcast with myself, Nair, Denny, and Meldon. Today's guest is Spence Sheldon. I'm sure if you're local to Bowling Green, you probably know him or have heard of him. But I'm going to let him introduce himself while we pour up the wine.
Yeah, my name is Spence Sheldon. I happen to just own Denatoes Pizza here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Still don't have it figured out. Still have a lot to learn. But I look forward to just hanging out with you guys for the next hour or so. I'm excited. Thank you for having me, first off.
Thank you for coming.
I appreciate it more than you know. It gives me a chance to kind of sit back and reflect a little bit, which I don't do a lot of. You're just constantly on the go, and so when you're invited to do stuff like this, it really allows you to sit down and just kind of think about how far you've come, good and bad. And so I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
It's like a little therapy session.
Yeah, seriously, absolutely. It's definitely therapy for me just to have some guys who just listen.
Yeah.
And it's just you either and just getting feedback. So anyways, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, so just kind of tell us how you started, a little about yourself.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So born and raised in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This town has just smothered me over the last 2 years, so I'm so appreciative to this town. I pray I never lose my love for Bowling Green, just because I just appreciate what they've done for this kid and allowed me to play adult the last 2 years. And so a little bit about myself. I've got 3 brothers and a sister. So I have a big family. I got a mom and a dad that are unbelievable, that just taught us how, gratitude and how to work, I guess. And so from a young age, we were going to work for everything that we ever got. And so, a lot of those are principles that I still carry with me today. And so grew up in town, went to Bowling Green Christian Academy, ended up going to Central with Denny for 3 years. Long story short, I transferred to IMG Academy in Florida to play basketball down there. Was never the plan. Always been, a mama's boy. Was never going to move too far from home. But a series of events just kind of happened, and I landed in Florida and had to grow up quick. That's been kind of like a common theme in my life. But at 16 years old, I just kind of moved away from home to follow a dream, and that dream to play Division I sports. And so I did that, went to IMG, came back, and then ultimately walked on at Western Kentucky and played 3 years there here in my hometown and played basketball there. And so, that's a little bit about me and how this all came to be. And then moved to Nashville for a year right after college sports. And I guess if there's anything to talk about there, was probably one of the most defining seasons of my life was transitioning from being an athlete to jumping into the real world. Yeah. Because all you've done for 24 years for me was basketball. I mean, that's what I did. It was sports. That's where I learned my life lessons. That's where that's kind of who made me. And at that point, the way I explain it is, I was 24 dribbling on a little Nerf ball, around the kitchen again, and it didn't make any sense to me. So you're starting over. And so I went through a crazy season trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to represent, and how was I going to make my friends proud? Who was I when I looked into the mirror? And so I went through a crazy season of the drugs and the alcohol and the girls, trying to figure out who I was. And that wasn't healthy for anybody. I was just a walking tornado. And so at that point, I kind of just said, you know what, it's time to go. It's time to start. You have one of those defining moments where you wake up, you've kind of hit rock bottom, and you're like, who the heck am I? And so at that point, you grasp to family, and that's why, I'm so heavy on my family. And so at that point, you just go to the drawing board and kind of figure out what the next step is, or how do I jump into the real world. And at that point, at 24 years old, the next step was Denatoes. And so if and I guess that kind of leads us into why I'm here.
For sure.
But essentially that's kind of how my upbringing. I come from a successful father, so that in itself was extremely. That was a tough bit for me, because I knew I didn't have my dad's story. And so if there was another motivator for me to get to work and prove something to somebody, it was the fact that I didn't have my dad's story. My dad, grew up without a father. His dad died in the military, got shot down, and so he went to school on a war orphan scholarship. And I didn't have that story. I had the story of, his dad's successful, so he's going to get everything that he's ever been handed to him. Absolutely. And so at 24, it was a chip on my shoulder. Yeah. Now I look at it as, listen, we can sit here and argue all day about how this building got here. And full disclosure, my father is my investor.
Of course.
But you can't deny the fact that I've showed up every single day. And there is no denying the fact that I'm here for my customers every single day, and it's beyond pizza. And so that forced me to work a whole lot harder than most, just because, or that was just a huge motivating factor early on, is because it was going to be a handout. Daddy was going to do it for him. Daddy was going to give him this, and bothered me, yes, but at the end of the day, why not? If you don't know me or understand my family, you have every right in the world to think that. Yeah. And so that was a struggle early on, but yeah, I mean, that's essentially how it came to be, and I'm sure you guys have questions about it, but I just we went to work.
What made you want to get into the restaurant industry and stuff like that?
Yeah, never the plan. I just wanted to start.
Yeah.
I think if there's anything for any young entrepreneur, really, I wouldn't figure out what you're about to do, but really figure out why you're about to do it. For me, it was I wanted to do life with people. I wanted to hang out with people. I wanted to love on people. I wanted to celebrate them when they needed to be celebrated, but also give them a big old hug when they're having a rough day. You can do that in a plethora of ways. It doesn't have to be a restaurant. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I had pizza. I didn't have to go look for those people, right? They came to me. And so Denatoes as a whole, it was just we tried it one time. That's how little we knew about the restaurant industry. I mean, and if anyone knows, you have to have a product. It can't just be you're only going to come see me and my staff, or somebody on my staff, maybe once a month, every 2 months, maybe 3 months. You have to show up for a product. Essentially we're selling your product. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be good. Yeah. We ate Denatoes one time. Me and my dad, that's pretty good. Well, and went after it. Idiots. And so, thank the good Lord, we have a product that's actually pretty darn good, because the place will sustain itself too without me being there some days. And so, so essentially, that's kind of why I chose the restaurant industry, and just the whole idea of serving, y'all. Like, it's not for everyone, but I think as an entrepreneur, the quicker we understand how to humble ourselves and just get beneath people, the better off we will. The better off we'll be, and the better we'll be at our jobs. The rest kind of falls in line after that. And so what better way to gain that valuable lesson than the service industry? And so that's essentially, kind of how we came up on restaurants as a whole. And I had to be going.
Yeah.
I wasn't one of those guys who was going to sit behind a desk. I just needed to be moving, shaking, doing something, staying busy. In the restaurant, oh my gosh, there's always something to be done. I can do something at all hours of the day. Something needs to be done. Yeah. And so I just don't feel stagnant. And so I appreciated that aspect of it too.
Why'd you choose Denatoes? You had plenty of franchises to choose from. You chose Denatoes.
It's a great question. So we looked at two or three different franchises. And so I have to backtrack a little bit. So once we landed on restaurants, we knew nothing about restaurants, right? So at the end of the day, we had to have a cheat sheet. I knew I wanted to go to work. I knew I wanted to treat people really well. Past that, I knew nothing. I didn't know how to set up accounts with vendors. I didn't know how the flow and functionality of a kitchen even. Yeah. I was a server for a year. I really didn't even understand that. And so I had to have a cheat sheet. So franchising was the way to go. We looked at... I don't know. We looked at juice companies. We looked at nukes. We looked at, and if I had to really get down as to why I chose Denatoes, was number one, the people. I would say their morals and principles were very aligned with what our family had done in the past. Just promoting goodwill, just essentially, the golden rule, or just loving on people. Like I think at the end of the day, or the customer service piece, it made tons of sense. But past that, they were the only ones. Honestly, y'all, if I could date back, it's been a while. They were the only ones that really took me seriously.
Yeah,
I was 24 years old, didn't have a pot to pee in. I did nothing. I was serving tables in Nashville, pretty much living with a girl bouncing back and forth. I mean, essentially, I had what
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But they took me seriously, and so I was on the phone with the franchise and made a few trips back and forth before the word capital ever came out of their mouths. Like, well, how are you gonna, where's the money coming from? So it went about 2.5, 3 weeks to where I was on the phone with Mr. Bender, walking myself through this franchising. And I was 24 years old. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. I look back now, oh my gosh, y'all. Like, there's no way they should have took me seriously. But they did.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I was sold. I was in. And thank God, at the end of the day, too, I had a dad that saw who I was becoming, not who I was, right? Because he shouldn't have ever invested in me at that age, too. So, I'm so fortunate and so blessed. And a series of events, just kind of took place to landed me where I was. But honestly, they're the only ones that took me seriously. Everyone else was like, okay, cool, dude, we'll send you an email. And then I think like my email was like SpenceSheldon@rocketmail.com. And like I think eventually they're like, what the freak is Rocket Mail? Like what is this kid doing? Like he just come out of middle school. And so at that point, most people just never reached out, didn't care. And that for good reason. They've got to keep a lot of stuff private, and they don't want this 24-year-old kid that was probably hungover, giving me information. So I get it. I'm not faulting any of the other franchises I just named. I'm just saying Denatoes is the only one either smart enough or dumb enough to let me in. So.
Yeah.
Were you sitting on your couch, man, one day and we're like in Nashville because you were
serving.
serving and you were like, damn, I got to do something in my life. And is that kind of what fueled it? Was it overnight or was it over a span of 6 months where you're like, shit, I need to open something up?
Yeah, it was definitely not overnight. And I'll be honest with you, why I'm so adamant about the start for entrepreneurs is because it was never what I wanted to do. It was never in the timing of what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to go. I wanted to start. We were just talking about this podcast. You guys were just sitting around talking, and then boom, a month later, here you are. You have no idea the how far ahead of the game you guys are when it comes to entrepreneurship. Honestly. The idea, the fact that it popped into your brain a month later, here we are with this unbelievable setup. Kudos to you guys. Because for me, it was, I knew what I wanted to do. I had so many options, right? I had this dad that was willing to invest. Yeah. And so I had so many options, right? What did I want to do? Where was I going to go? Y'all, I thought I was decent at everything. What do they say? Pretty good at something, a master of none. That was me. Like, I could do a lot of things. Athlete, pretty good with people. Worked for my uncle's dry cleaners, worked for, my dad for a while. People, I had this knack for treating people well, and they were buying into whatever I was doing behind the counter. And I had so many options, but I literally couldn't land on any of them. It took me probably opening up. I opened up young, 24, but I could have probably opened up at 22 if I just had the brain and I understood really this whole entrepreneurial mindset of just go. Of just start. Yeah. Because once you start and you're the best, say you want to open up a stinking popsicle stand. Like if you're the best popsicle stand on the block, other doors are going to open up. Yeah. That first job, that first gig is not going to be the job you want. It's not necessary. But I promise you, if you're the very best at what you do, the next opportunity is coming, right? And then your dream job is just around the corner. You've just got to buy in, and you've got to do the small stuff in a big way early on. To get there. So back to your question, to bring it full circle, is no, it wasn't overnight. It took me way too dang long. It took me 2 or 3 years to try to figure out what the heck I wanted to do with my life, and I still didn't have it figured out when I started. Yeah. And that didn't. Still don't have my life figured out. Still don't know. I have big dreams, big aspirations, and I know what keeps me up at night. But at the end of the day, I didn't know. I still didn't. I cried like a baby to my mom the night before I opened. Cried like a baby. I was in Destin, Florida. I took a week trip with my mom. Cried. Mom, this isn't for me. This isn't what I wanted to do. I thought I was bigger. Yeah. Right? I thought I was bigger than being the pizza boy. Yeah. Dude, if I can give anyone a life lesson about entrepreneurship, get out of your own way. Get out of your own head of the pride. Don't let the pride sit in, and really understand it's about getting beneath your customers, beneath your employees, serving them, and in return, the bank account's going to probably look pretty good later on. I'm just telling you. I thought I was bigger than it. Yeah. I thought I was bigger. I didn't want to do it. So to answer is I never figured it out. There's still more I wanted to do, but I'm so thankful for the 2.5 years I've had and the season I've had of humbling myself in serving people. It's done more for me in building the brand that I want to build, whether it be restaurants or whether it be the next venture. So I never figured it out, ever. I just went. I just said I was going to start. And I think that's a huge thing for entrepreneurs. Start. Go. Yeah. Begin something. Don't sit on your ass and play Fortnite. Yeah. Like, go. Start. Begin. Just jump. Because I promise you, you'll feel alive. You just got to be the best. You got to treat people the best, first off. Yeah. You got to treat people better than anybody on the block. And you got to work harder than anybody on the block. You'll be the best. And you have a high, success rate. I promise you. So I never figured it out. Never, honestly, I don't think I'll ever figure it out. I think I'll just keep going until the ambition inside of me kind of floats out. But other than that, no, it was not. It was a process. And I wish, and that's what I tell everyone, I wish I was just smart enough to just start somewhere. Yeah. And so.
The hardest part is starting, because I haven't done something on the level of Denatoes, but I've opened up like car shops and dealerships and all that shit.
Right. Good for
But
you.
yeah, the big thing is just starting, because when I called them about the podcast, the first thing I told them was we need to do something every day. Yeah. So in a month we want to be in here. Wow. Because if you say like, hey, we'll do it next week, we'll get it started. I got this idea, but we'll get it started later. It's never going to start.
Never will.
Yeah. So the big thing is starting.
Yeah, absolutely. Go, jump. Goodness gracious, man. Like I'm so adamant about that, because I know how much time I wasted. Yeah. And people would say, oh my gosh, you opened up young. I'm going, y'all, I could have opened up 2 years before. Yeah. I had the dad willing to do it. I played around for 1.5 years, 2 years, waiting on that thing that I loved. Like our generation, like millennials, like we're terrible about it. Yeah. Like I want to love what I'm doing. I want to love. Dude, I promise you that thing you love is right around the corner if you just go. Yeah. If you go, you're not going to get. And listen, and some people do. They jump in like the music industry, or, they just happen to be a crazy talent. And my thing is that, my prayer for everyone is don't take advantage of that. If that dream job is sitting there waiting for you because you went to professional school and you got a 4-year degree that I wasn't willing to do, or that dream job just happens to land in your lap right after college, dude, don't take advantage of it. Like that, or that's my thing. It's like that's what pisses me off more than anything. It's like, dude, I would have done anything to have my dream job right out of college. But the reality is that doesn't happen for the majority of us. Absolutely not. Yeah. And if it does for you, and you're gonna half-ass that, like I'm out. Like that. Like I don't. No. Don't. That's not me. I don't appreciate that at all, because I would have dreamed to have that restaurant handed to me, that I want to retire off of one day, or that clothing line, or that music label, or that, all those. I would have dreamed to have that. And who are you to sit back and just to pretend like this is the way it's supposed to be? It's not. That's not the way it is, especially for entrepreneurs. You've got to buy into the fact that, life for you is not going to look as glamorous as most people think it is for 2 or 3 years. It's just the reality. So,
for sure. Since we're talking about the little like darker times, you said something about depression and drugs and all that. Yeah. Is that a point in life where you don't regret? Because I feel like that's part of your fuel now. Yeah. And like people out there, they're probably thinking like, they think they're at their lowest points ever, but they don't realize right over that hill is their next step.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I think, love that question. If I look back, I was feeling something, right? And I think if we all dated back to drugs or alcohol or substance or any kind of vice that we may have, we were all feeling some kind of hole, right? And so I think at that time it was feeling this hole for me that I just wanted to feel. I wanted to be back on my high horse as a Division I athlete. There was just so much sense of pride about me, and there was only one thing that was going to do that, and that was cocaine. And so it was just a daily thing for me. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. I think I knew I was never, quote unquote, an addict. I knew it wasn't there to stay, but it was filling the hole. And I think if I go back to why it took me so long to open up my first venture, I would undeniably say the drugs were a huge part of that. Yeah. That dopamine high was what I needed to get me through that day, and I didn't have to think about the high of owning my own business or a high of having my own family and providing for my kids and the high of having my faith. And so, do I regret it? Absolutely not. I think it takes a lot of rough days for you to really appreciate the good ones. And I get that a lot. Man, how do you stay so upbeat? Because I know what a bad day looks like. Yeah, you know what I mean? Sure. And I think all the beautiful people do. Like my hardest workers come from the roughest homes. Yeah. By far. And I asked them, like, gosh, what makes you so different than all the other 16-year-olds? And then the one common denominator is, divorced family, or not even living with their family, or just lost their mom, or just lost their dad, or lost their mom to drugs or cancer, or, so I don't ever regret the dark moments. And if I could give any kind of message of hope, it's, you come out on the other side, get a few really dope friends, and find a reason to live outside of yourself. Yeah. And go after it. I would say no, I don't regret it one bit. I learned a lot about myself through those stages, and I learned a lot about my friends. I think if anything, you teach yourself during those dark seasons to who you want to surround yourself with, and who's going to motivate you to get to where you want to go, and who's essentially going to be dead weight, and who's going to bring you down. And that changes, right? That's not to say that those people in that season are there to stay, and just because you had to drop them off on one season doesn't mean that they can walk back. I've got plenty of those friends. I got plenty of those friends to where it's like, yo, we had a rough patch together. I think it's best we disperse. But and then 2 years down the road, look at us now. Yeah. It was healthy for us to split. Now here we are. Now we're still boys right now, and it's a beautiful thing, and that's something to really take into consideration. Just but no, I don't regret it. Absolutely not.
Speaking of dark days, everybody sees the good side of Denatoes. It's successful, this and that. I'm sure there was trials and tribulations that nobody has
you can push it.
Has seen. What's something that you actually remember that's the tough times starting Denatoes?
Dude, y'all, if I even told you, you guys would flip out. I mean, there were nights I slept in the restaurant. Yeah. There were nights, there were multiple nights. Me and my mop bucket at 3 a.m. just bawling my eyes out. Wasn't worth it. Just kind of it didn't matter at that point. And, I'll piggyback off this, and as to most entrepreneurs really need to understand, it's got to be more bigger than money. Because at that point, it didn't matter what I was driving away in. It didn't matter what home I was going into. Yeah. At 3 a.m., when it's me and my stinking mop bucket mopping this whole dang restaurant, and I'm bawling my eyes out, it didn't matter. That why was I doing that? And we can talk about that. I'm sure we will later. But, yeah, man, I remember coming back from vacation one time and clearing house, fired all my managers, and pretty much start over after a year in. Yeah. A year in, you learn a lot about your employees. Take a vacation, you learn a lot about them, and so you get back, and I pretty much cleaned house and started over a year in. That was extremely tough on me because I went from working, that first 6-7 months I never left. 70, 80-hour weeks, 90-hour weeks. That's just the norm. Sleeping, waking up, cutting the veggies every morning, doing the hard stuff because I wanted to be there. Yeah. I wanted the customers to know that I cared. I wanted my employees to know that I cared, but also I'm trying to develop a culture and a brand for myself, and I didn't know what that was at that point. And the only way for me to really figure that out is to figure out who I wasn't. And if I figured out who I wasn't, the only way to do that was to be there and to constantly see the culture that I was creating and what was really going down. And so you just had to be there. And so those were the dark days. Those were definitely the rougher days where there was just weeks I would go home. I mean, I lived off peanuts and Powerade. I was telling somebody the other day, peanuts and Powerade for about 6 months. The only thing open was IGA. I wasn't going to eat a greasy burger before bed because I wasn't mentally going to be prepared to wake up the day tomorrow. So I went to IGA or Kroger, sorry, and it was the only thing open at 2, 3 a.m., peanuts, Powerade, just crush them, go to bed, wake up, do it all over again tomorrow. Yeah. And you say, Spence, why didn't you hire someone, early on? I was so focused on building a culture that I wanted that was going to last. Don't necessarily try to figure out what's going to work. Figure out what's going to last. I would tell that to any entrepreneur. Yeah. I knew it worked. I could go get the Arby's guy that's cutting veggies, and he could come in here with, and do what I want, what I'm doing right now. But at the end of the day, I wanted a culture, and I wanted to be there, and I wanted to show everyone in that kitchen that I was willing to work harder than they were. And so that was the culture that I developed for myself. And so, yes, 70, 80, 90-hour weeks, sleeping in the restaurant, waking up, open to close, open to close, open to close. That was just the norm. I mean, it just was. I lost so much weight, couldn't work out, I wasn't mentally where I was. I had an employee work for me the first year, went off to college, came back 3 years, this third year, and literally was like, Spencer, you are so much happier than you were then. I was like, yeah, heck, I'm not working 90 hours a week anymore. It's like I'm not, I was sleeping on that bar stool over there, on that, I was sleeping on that little thing. I'm not trying to over exaggerate. I probably spent the night in that restaurant probably 7 to 10 times. But the reality was I was leaving at 2, going home to my place, getting back there at 6. But there were some nights where I could, it was just stupid. Why would I drive home and waste that 30 minutes of sleep? All I got's 2 hours, right? Especially on a weekend night. We were staying open till 1 at the time. Had to come in and cut veggies at 6. So that was just normal. And so, essentially we cut our hours back and did a lot of cool stuff. But you've got to be willing to eat dirt for a while. If as an entrepreneur, you've got to be able to understand that your first 2 years aren't as glamorous as what you think they are, and the money it's not just coming in as the bucket loads. You're the last person that gets paid. Yeah. So if no one hears anything from this podcast, is you've got to understand everyone gets paid before you. Everyone, because the business as a whole doesn't work unless you do. Like the paying rent to my dad right now, I got to pay rent. I got to keep the lights on. I got to pay all my employees. They're not going to come work for me for free. Get the heck out of here. I'm the only one willing to do that, right? So you got to pay everyone. Then you got to keep the lights on. You got to keep, you got to pay rent every week. You got to pay the dishwasher before you pay yourself, and people just don't understand that. And when you're trying to pay off the initial investment, then it's just those were the dark days. Has it gotten a little better every now and then? But absolutely, I shouldn't say that. It absolutely gets better. I don't want you to think this whole entrepreneurship thing is a pain. It definitely gets better, a whole lot better. So grind it out, knowing full well that it will get better. But for me, there's still days I have to go back to that. Somebody doesn't show up to work, or a manager quits out of nowhere. But those would be essentially really the dark days, and thank God most of those are over.
Yeah, a cool thing actually was when Denatoes opened, I heard you opened it. Like, I knew of you from your dad and all that. And I was like, straight up, my thought was another rich guy just got something handed to him, and he's going to just go. But one time I was like, I'm going to try Denatoes, so I ordered a delivery. Yeah. And when I checked outside, you actually delivered the pizza. And I was like, this is something I didn't expect at all, because I was like, you don't see the owner of the place delivering the pizza, so that's one thing I respect. And
that's beautiful, man. I appreciate you saying that. You go where you're told, right? You're at the mercy of your employees. Like, you hear it all the time. I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be my own boss, which is true in a lot of ways, and I think that's beautiful in its own aspect. I get that, but at the end of the day, y'all, if someone doesn't show up, I'm filling their spot. The buck stops with me, so I can be my own boss all day long, but if somebody doesn't show up, and I'm delivering pizzas that night. And that's okay. I mean, that's just my business. You sell out. You got to do what you got to do. And if I'm being frank, I actually enjoy that aspect. I do enjoy delivering. It's run and gun. I come and go, da-da-da-da. You're getting these tips. You're just going. You know what I mean? It's fun. I enjoy it. But you can only take people as far as you're willing to go yourself, or you've gone yourself. And how was I ever supposed to tell a delivery driver to take it seriously and that we're going to do things a little differently than most pizza restaurants if I'm not, next to them some nights? And people respect that. And like you said, man, I knew that. I knew that I was just going to be another handout coming from another successful dad. Like, I knew that. So I was trying to do everything in my power. Not that night I wasn't. I'm sure that night I was just doing what I had to do. But I'm saying, when I opened up, yes, I did my first talk at Western. Oh, gosh, we hadn't been open a year and a half. Released it, and it was about working hard. That's what it was about. Dude, I got ripped to shreds on Facebook, YouTube, that was the first time that I had seen it. Yeah. I knew the chatter. I knew what was going on. I wasn't mad about it. I was expecting it, so I was very aware. But reading it and hearing what people had to say, what does this kid know about working hard? Oh, his daddy gave him all, his daddy did this, daddy did that. And I'm going, I'm trying to take them all to lunch. That was my comments. I was like, I promise you, can we just go get lunch? Yeah. Like, I'll explain to you what my yesterday looked like, and the day before that, and the consistent. And I think if there's another point in all this, if you bark at every dog, you'll never make it home. If you decide to sit and bark at every dog that's in your way, you'll just never get to where you want to go. And so I've learned you call them haters, call them whatever the heck you want, man. You just stay in your lane and understand that no one gets to where you're headed without some type of work ethic and understanding business. I mean, you've got to have both. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I get that a lot. Some people are like, what the heck, you're delivering? Or I've had people too come to the door and go, wait, 1 minute. I'm like, listen, I can't. And they're trying to bring the whole house out. And I'm like, no. I got to get back to the store. We've got more deliveries. If I'm delivering, that means we're busy. You know what I mean? That means that I need to get back. And I'm like, no. We can't sit here and have a glass of wine and crackers. Like, I got to get back. And so, no, I think that's great. And I'll forever do that. I think it's probably one of the most fun jobs the funnest jobs we have in the store. And they sure as heck make the most money. So.
And a little bit off topic of the actually it's on topic of the entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But like, what does it take to open up a franchise? Is it you just pay out a company and they kind of set everything up, or do you? Great
question. Yeah. So you have your franchise fee, what you initially have to buy in for. For me, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell numbers. I mean, if most franchises or anywhere, just the initial buy-in fee, just to get their book that says this is how we do it, is anywhere from probably, I would say, $15 to $30,000, depending, on how. I'd say I shouldn't say that. I'd say most franchises are competitive, and that number probably is pretty steady. But just to give you guys an idea, so you pay that, and then. That's just kind of the buy-in. And then for us, we had to sign on to 3 stores. Franchises, essentially now, they kind of cover themselves, because like when the recession hit in 2008, Subway got into all those class action lawsuits because they were promised, hey, if I did X amount of sales and, my labor was this, my food was this, this is what my bottom line should look like. This is how much money I should be making if I'm doing X amount of sales. Well, they weren't. And so therefore, they lost their butt on all that. Like these people, these franchisees for Subway just went after Subway. So we're going to sue you. You told us that we did, and they lost millions and millions of dollars. So now what franchises do is they make you sign on for 3 to make sure that you're not undercapitalized, that you're not just banking on this money coming in exactly the way it's supposed to, and they're not in some class action lawsuit. So I had to sign on for 3. The franchise, essentially, man, you go up there. I met with the franchise once, came back, and that was more from me, was to like, check us out. This is what we're about. Come on. Then if I agree, say, okay, I still want to take a step further, you go back up there, and then it's for them. Then they're just really hounding you. How bad do you want to do it? This is what we're about. Do you represent us? How da-da-da-da-da. And so 2 trips, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conference calls, a lot of really trying to figure it all out, a lot of Excel sheets that I had no idea what they said. Just kind of let Dad handle a lot of that early on, just because I was such a kid, man. Had no idea what I was doing. I'm so thankful for my father. And so anyways, other than that, I mean, that's pretty much what a franchise does for you. I mean, they do a lot of marketing for you, too. They don't necessarily do it for me because I'm out of their media market. Like a lot of the stores, there's 100 and... Gosh, I hope somebody from the franchise doesn't listen to this. But there's like 180, 190 stores, something like that. And the majority, 80, 90% of them are in Indianapolis, Columbus, Cincinnati, that area. And so therefore a lot of the marketing stuff doesn't necessarily see Bowling Green, which makes tons of sense. And so but you pay a fee for marketing, you pay a fee for print, they send out mailers to you guys occasionally, or and so that's essentially what they do for me. And then obviously they have 100. I mean, if you're paying for anything, and this is I'll and I'll shut up after this about the franchise, but if you're paying for anything, you're paying for a bunch of data. You're paying for, they've got 190 stores worth of data of what works and what doesn't work. Even if that, that booklet, it's a wealth of information. You know what I mean? It's like, listen, it's not necessarily a book. I'm calling it a book. It's just the people in general saying, this is the food you're going to sell. This is, this is how you'll be competitive, in your market. And this is how we do things. This is how we've done it. And 190 of them, this is what's worked. And, they're all profitable. And that's what you're essentially buying into. But, I hope that answered your question. Franchises as a whole, they're a wealth of information. They've done it, bought into a Wendy's. You've got thousands and thousands of data of what works and what doesn't. And obviously they're still standing. So.
All right. So you've got some like big shoes to fill, with your dad being who he is. Growing up, was he hard on you and your siblings, or was it kind of just more easygoing? You guys figured it out on your own?
Yeah. Dad is not gonna like this. Me and Dad, we did not hit it off at all when I was younger. Sorry. He was extremely tough on me. Extremely. Looking back, hindsight's 20/20. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But no, we definitely didn't really see eye to eye. And honestly, y'all, at 27, I think me and Dad probably had the best relationship we've ever had right now. But yeah, he was extremely tough on all of us. But I empathize now more than ever because I don't know what I would do if I had a wife and kids. Still trying to juggle these hours and run my own business. Yeah. And so Dad essentially at the time, I don't on the timeline of it all. I'm not really sure, but at that point, I think he probably had 2 or 3 pharmacies when I was really in that stage to where, you start developing that relationship with your dad, and so sports, good, bad. He was extremely tough on me and all of us. I'm not going to single out myself. Seaton and Seth and Tara and Ryan. I mean, all of us. We were Dad did not play games, and he was he was extremely tough on us, and so big shoes to fill. I think that was another motivator when I opened. Obviously, I had this dad that you don't want to beat him. Yeah, that's not the point, right? I think, but you did want to make him proud. Yeah. And we struggled hard. Me and my dad are a lot alike. Father and son's one thing. Business partners is totally different. But just to backtrack, kind of on my upbringing is, if I missed a ground ball, my dad was the one out there nailing balls at me until I fielded it correctly. Nobody's at first base, and I'm just hurling baseballs over there. And I'm crying my eyes out. Mom's screaming in the car, "Stevie gets it, he's fine," and Dad's just, "No, he doesn't. He just keeps it. He let that one go through his legs. He won't. He'll keep his glove down on the next one." That was just my dad. And if I didn't, when it got to high school, when he wasn't my coach, if I had a rough game in high school or something, he was the dad, saying, no, you're not leaving the gym, or why did you leave the gym? Or, I didn't have a life if I had a bad game. It was, what the heck are you doing? And so I had an unbelievable father. He wasn't all bad, but extremely tough on us. Yes, absolutely. But big shoes to fill, yes. Fast forward again, sorry. Big shoes to fill, but we just now we have a really good relationship because we really understand each other's expertise. I was prideful at 24. I thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't need anybody's help, including my dad. How stupid was I? But now, having developed a little bit of a brand for myself, we appreciate what we both bring to the table. He's extremely smart. My dad is brilliant. I didn't see that at 24. Now, being 2 years into my business, we better, I'm a little farther along in business sense to really appreciate my dad now, finally. It took me 27 years. And so now, and therefore, I've worked my tail off for 2.5 years now, going on 3 years. And so he has a better appreciation for me. He's extremely busy. I pretty much have to make appointments to see him now. But he's just, my dad is high integrity, high principle, a big time guy, and we're so proud of him. But yeah, I think just within the last 2 years, honestly, Mashad, like me and my dad's relationship just really started to become a little, and he's gonna hate this, enjoyable. Like we talk about things and business, and we relate, and it's cool. And it's not, why did you miss that ground ball, or how many turnovers did you have, or and we had a lot of really cool moments growing up. And I know he's gonna watch this, and I know he's gonna hate this, but he was extremely tough, and he should have been, man. I hope I find that line too, because I want my kids to really understand how to work and how to fail. But fail trying, and to go back at it again the next day, and that's what he taught me, And so I have an unbelievable dad. I hope I'm not coming across as he's extremely condescending, because he's not. He's unbelievable, and I wouldn't obviously be where I am without him. So
this might be a better question for him, but how do you think he found time to raise 5 kids with all this going on? You said I have no idea. You have one restaurant. You're in the working 90 hours a week, and he's got 3 pharmacies, man.
Yeah, I don't. Dad is a workaholic. Dad works. That's what he does. That's what he enjoys doing. He doesn't have hobbies. He doesn't. He has his wife as his closest companion. Doesn't have a lot of friends. Doesn't golf. Doesn't like to vacation much. Yeah. Has kind of built a life for himself here that's pretty admirable, and enjoys it. So he doesn't really have to go where much else. But I don't know. I think he would tell you, and so would I, as I go into opening up my second location. You just surround yourself with really good people. And really, work your tail off those first 3 or 4 years to develop a culture that lasts. Not just something that works, but develop a culture that lasts, that people buy into, to where you can step away and do 2 and 3. And now I think he has 10, 12 pharmacies. And so it's just, and he's in the stinking legislator now. He's a politician. So it's just, he does it all. And, I think, it's definitely a question for him. And I think he'll come in here and answer that for you guys. I hope he'll do that. I know he will. I know he will. Dad, I'm signing you up. He would. He'd love that. He loves mentoring young gunners more so probably than he does somebody that's been through it. Like, that's his thing. He does. He enjoys young generation walking into his office asking questions more so probably than he does. He enjoys helping all people, but I've heard him say it in the past is that, the younger generation, he does genuinely enjoy helping. But I don't know how he did it. I really don't. He just worked. He worked. He had an unbelievable wife. I know he'd say a lot about my mom that worked right next to him. And then obviously I'm sure his faith was a big deal. So
switching up from parenting and all that, from Denatoes, I know you went down to Florida, like you said, and went through D1 college. You got any experiences to share about that? Just some. Yeah,
absolutely. I think playing a Division I sport, walking on at a Division I sport, it's exactly what the name of it really is. Like, you just feel like you just get walked on, right?
Yeah.
And so I think nothing prepared me more from being an entrepreneur than to going and working my tail off for absolutely nothing for 3 years. I mean, right? I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, you eventually find other things, like I am now, to show up to practice every day. But it wasn't about playing time. That's for dang sure, right? It gets to that point to where it's like the big elephant in the room is playing time. The big elephant in the room for an entrepreneur is money. I had to find other reasons to play. For me, it was respect of my peers and my coaches. That's why I showed up to the gym every day and worked harder than everyone, or attempted to. Or gave it my best shot, whatever you want to call it. And the same way with being an entrepreneur, man. Your first 2 years, you own a business. BS, dude. You ain't got nothing. You've got a lot of responsibility is all you've got, and until you pay off your initial investment, depending on your overhead, and until you create a brand for yourself, like, you don't have near as much money as people think you do. You know what I mean? And so it's just you've got to find other reasons. IMG was a boarding school, so I grew up so quick. I didn't have mommy and daddy to run to when I had a bad practice, right? I'm 12, 13 hours away, so all I had was my dudes. I had my team. And once again, that taught me a lot about who I wanted to surround myself moving forward. And sports, man, I owe a lot to it. I coach one kid. Shout out to Ryder, just to keep me back in it. I do individual lessons on the side. This is not soliciting myself. I don't have time for much more than that. But Ryder is. It keeps me back in the gym. I feel like I owe that game so much, man. Like, it just taught me so much, more than probably a lot of jobs and girlfriends ever did. Really, I mean, that game just. How to work together, how to treat people, how to come together as a team, and really and how to respect authority, how to respect coaches that's gone before you, and and how to compete at a high level. Just how to compete when you get to that level, when you get to where you want to go. And maybe you shouldn't necessarily, I was this 5'11" white kid, right? Like, it's not like I think I belong. I could compete with just about any guard in the country, but I didn't necessarily belong there, so it was just I had to learn how to work. I just had to learn how to work, and how was I going to keep my jersey? How was I going to keep my name on the roster? And it wasn't playing time. They knew I was never going to contribute to the game. I was just going to have to find ways outside of what people perceived as success to win, and that may be one of the most profound things I've ever said. Because honestly, that's what business is. Yeah. Find other ways to win other than the bank account, and you'll be all right.
So did you get any of the advantages that other players got? Kind of, I know you're a walk-on, but did you get any special treatment and stuff from professors? Or I know you had to put on the work.
You did. Yeah, I can't lie. Yeah. There's people that that appreciate. Or if that's gone before you, maybe I had another teacher that was an athlete that understands just what goes into the time, regardless whether you're playing or not, what goes into it. But Yeah, I don't think special treatment's the word, but they definitely cut you some slack. You're on the road a lot, and so papers and tests and stuff, those deadlines tend to widen.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. If I, other than being, yeah, I mean, there was perks. I don't really know, other than we didn't really. I'd never really had an altercation with a teacher to where they did, that I felt like they did me wrong because I was an athlete. It was always the other way around. It was always, they're going to cut me some slack because we were on the road, because we had games, because we've been NCAA tournament, stuff like that. So, I mean, I'd be lying if I sat here and said there weren't perks to it. I mean, and obviously all the gear that everyone was talking about. I mean, goodness gracious, getting a new pair of shoes every 2 weeks and sweatshirts and hoodies and the whole nine, and unlimited amount of Powerade and Gatorade. I mean, it's just it was a different world for me. And then obviously, you're kind of put on a pedestal in this town, but you're around town, you kind of have that swag about you. And so I don't know, man, I enjoyed it, and absolutely those perks obviously weren't enough to keep me around for my last year, so they weren't all that great, but at the end of the day, perks. I mean, you got some cool stuff, and then traveling with the team and stuff like that. And when going to the NCAA tournament was just crazy. 2 years in a row. That's where you really just get treated like royalty.
Did you play with Courtney Lee? Or was that
I know Courtney. Courtney and I were. Courtney was before me. Courtney was a long
Sign
time
Courtney
before
up
me.
too.
Yeah, Courtney. We're coming. No, I know Courtney and I are acquaintances. I don't necessarily have his number in my phone, but he was before me. But Courtney's best friend, Adam Howard, shout out to Adam. Adam worked me out all through high school, and Courtney and Adam were best friends, and so therefore I developed that relationship. And we would have the team over early on. That's why it was such a dream of mine. All the way back to Patrick Sparks was my favorite player, and then I actually signed my name in like elementary school, Spence Sparks Sheldon.
Little nickname.
Yeah. Seriously, I mean, that was the thing. I think and so so Courtney was a phenomenal guy. But yeah, no, I didn't play with him. My roommate was George Fant, which I know you guys are hoping to get on here, but still talk to George. George is a phenomenal human. Y'all be lucky to get him in here, but he just my best friend all through high school, and then my roommate all through college, and so those guys, obviously they taught you how to work. I mean, George works his absolute tail off. I mean, there's just no denying it. I thought I worked hard, and I did, but George he'd find a way to outwork you, or he'd sneak up on you. I'd say that. Yeah. He'd be in the gym, you'd be like, what the heck, how'd you get here? What happened? Weren't we just eating Cheetos in the dorm? Like that was George. That was George. He was always working. But I got to be with some cool guys. I mean, IMG was cool. I mean, we're working next to Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Kobe's in there some days, Steve Francis. I mean, we being around the best. And it's a tennis program, so Maria Sharapova, Leighton Hewitt, Tommy Haas, Andre Agassi. Being around those guys, obviously, it shows you, you got to work to get to where you want to go. So
going back to you said George Fant was your roommate, right?
Yeah.
After he departed from college and you departed from college, was it kind of like a wall that hit you? Like, this dude went to the NFL, and then you were kind of, like you said, I don't know what you did after college, but, was that a motivation factor that, damn, your roommate just, he's doing...
Yeah, I think we all get put in that comparison game, right? We're always trying to compare ourselves to our peers, and... I never really compared myself with George because we were just that close, and he was just such a freak athlete, and I was just kind of the guy, just the guy in the room that happened to know him really well, So I never really compared myself to George. We were extremely close in high school and college, but as he's gone and done bigger and better things, I wanted nothing but success for him, and envy will take you places, goodness gracious, that you never saw coming. I mean, you'll find yourself setting goals that you'll never attain. You'll find yourself being someone you're never going to be, and so George, there's a part of you, I mean, I think the last thing I said to Coach Harper was, "I'll make you proud one day." That was my college coach when I walked out, and I'll never forget that.
Do y'all still keep in touch?
Coach Harper, no, we really, really don't. I think the initial goodbye wasn't good terms. Just a rough. It was a respect thing. I was playing for the respect of my coaches and peers, and there was just a situation to where I just didn't feel very respected by my head coach, and I didn't appreciate it, and I regret it. quitting of any sorts, and that is more of a motivation thing for me than anything. I feel like I let my team down. I didn't really feel like I let Hart down because I didn't feel like he cared, but my team definitely, I felt like I let them down more than anything, just because, like I said, behind the scenes, I was more of a glue guy. What are you doing? Where are you at? We should be together. Let's keep our nose out of trouble.
Yeah.
Bro, why are you eating that? What are you doing? We play tomorrow. You better, or waking the guys up. We can't be late. If you're late, we're all running kind of thing. And so I feel like at that point, they all kind of lost their mom or dad in a sense, and so I felt bad about that. But no, man, George deserves all the success he's getting, man. He's a phenomenal dude. He hasn't changed, although we don't talk near as much as we used to. When we do, he's still the same old George. He hasn't changed. He hadn't changed, and so yeah, I mean, people around you motivate you. They should, right? If people around you aren't motivating you, you're probably in the wrong room. And so George, every time he comes in, he pats me on the back, and I pat him. Man, I'm so proud of you. I can't believe how far you've gone, and the feelings are mutual. So he always drops by the restaurant every time he's in town, and we get to have that conversation. But no, I think we're both in our own lanes, and we're both working extremely hard. And there'll be a day we get to catch up and go on vacation as a family together. But until then, we're both just kind of tunnel vision.
Do you think you're, any better than some of the scholarship athletes that are playing with you? Like, you kind of maybe deserve more
that's just such a tough call. I think the biggest thing, my biggest thing was obviously my size, and so it didn't really matter how good or athletic I was to compete at that high level and to guard the players that I needed to guard. It was going to be extremely tough. I think any given day, I think especially at my stature at Division I, it's a confidence thing. It's undeniably. There were days that I felt extremely confident and I shot the ball better than anyone in the gym. But there were also days where I would make one mistake and get reamed, and I'd just go hide in a shell, and get cussed up and down the court. So the game of basketball is a lot like your workforce. It's empowering people to get the best out of them and building them up to be extremely confident in what they're doing. And those are the days to where I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like I could, you know what I mean? Like I could compete with these guys, or if not better than some days. So. I don't know. Like I said, you humble yourself during those seasons, and you really don't think about, am I better than a scholarship player or not? But absolutely, there were days I was better than some of the guards, 100%. Or I felt like I should have got the nod rather than, but because he's on scholarship, he was probably going to get the. There were days I had that thought.
You're better than Caden Dickerson.
Caden, I just talked to Caden this weekend. Absolutely, I'm better than Caden Dickerson. Write it down.
Another thing, you talked about the NCAA tournament. What's that experience like?
Wild, extremely crazy. I mean, it was you get police escorts everywhere you go. You walk into a hotel and you're treated like royalty. The security guards on your door, not your door, the hallway, making sure nobody can get up to the floors. Yeah. You essentially, if you had a jersey, you could literally go do whatever you wanted. People getting autographs that never should in a million years be asking for my autograph. And so, it was an unbelievable feeling. They literally treat you like royalty. You've got a police escort everywhere you go. Awesome. People, you're signing more autographs than I've ever signed in my entire life, and probably will ever do. But just signing, everything. You just they just treat you like royalty. You're in a city, and the funny thing is, people just show up like, oh my gosh, these are all future NBA guys, right? Like that's what the MO is, and so people just show up and like, oh, you're on a team, sign this, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you have no idea, dude. Like I averaged like 8 butt slaps a game, like 6 towel waves, 3 glasses of water. Like you don't want my autograph, but I you go along with it. So it was definitely an experience. I'm trying to think of anything. I don't know. One year we all got Ray-Bans, and that's all those gifts and stuff at tournaments too that you get. Like then the farther you go along, like it was other stuff that kind of caught me off guard. Like what? We're going to South Carolina to play a basketball tournament, and we're all getting Xboxes. Like what? You know what I mean? It's like that's awesome. What do you But to get good teams to play in these tournaments, they'd wow out apparently. But
what's the coolest arena you played in?
Yum Center.
Oh really?
Yeah. My freshman, I think it's my sophomore year, we played Kentucky. At Yum, that was probably like lifetime achievement for this born and raised basketball fan in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Was playing Kentucky in the Yum Center. Yum Center is probably the nicest gym I've ever played in by far, and I was fortunate enough to get in and slap a few butts that game.
Did your part, bro. You did your part.
Yeah.
Earlier you talked about how like you have this love for Bowling Green since it's kind of the city of raising stuff. I understand you've done some stuff to give back to the community, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think don't bite the hand that feeds you, kind of thing. I just and it's just what I'm about, essentially. You know, I gave away. This isn't kudos to me. This is what I'm about, and I think if anyone spends any kind of time around me, they really understand that that's, for me, that's where I get my fulfillment, is doing for people. And, you know, I tell people all the time, it's just I breathe to help. I take it to the extreme, you know, and I say that to myself every single day. And so like our first year we were open, we gave away probably about $160,000 worth of food. Some people would call that absurd.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I wanted the people to know what I was about. It wasn't about the paycheck. It was about serving my community, being a part of my community, and doing the very best I could with what I was given. And, you know, I needed them to know a lot about me. Now, the second year was totally different. Had to have you can't have a profitable business and do that. It's not realistic. But I had to have that hard conversation. I had to grow up quick once again and say, hey, listen, I know that I donated 10 pizzas for little Jimmy's birthday party.
Yeah.
But, you know, I did that to develop this relationship. You know what I'm about. I'm going to make it easy on you. Text me. But this is as cheap as I can go. You know, and now I'm in the for-profit game, and I've got to make a living for myself. And so, but yeah, we're constantly giving back, doing fundraisers, and you know, I've employed, you know, a lot of people, a lot of second chancers. But the restaurant industry allows you to do that. A lot of addicts, a lot of homeless, a lot of, you know, there's a place for everybody in my restaurant, and I appreciate that. So.
You did a lot for the homeless. You want to speak about that, or?
Yeah. You know, I got some good advice one time that just kind of said, you know, what keeps you up at night? What makes you extremely mad? And I was like, not a lot. I'm pretty even, you know, even keel guy, and love everybody. I'm kind of always spreading this message of cohesion and trying to get everyone on the same page. And then when I opened up the restaurant, you just consistently have a lot of homeless coming in asking for food, which is fair. And early on, you're like, okay, you know, obviously this is what I'm about, so I'm gonna feed them. Of course, why wouldn't I? And so, you know, we fed until finally, you know, we started getting taken advantage of. Really didn't understand who was homeless, who wasn't, who was just coming in for the free pizza. And so I kind of got a little, you know, I went through a little phase where I was kind of frustrated, you know, and I was like, you know what, we got taken advantage of one really good time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to kind of use that as a buffer to say, we're done feeding the homeless. Actually, I think at that point I said, we're done. Other than a few that I knew personally that I was trying to get out of a crazy situation, you know, we're going to be done for a while until I figure out a really good way to do this. Well, I couldn't sleep. I was like, wow, the freak, no, I've got to feed these people. What if they don't have food? Like, what am I doing? And so then I said, we will feed you if you sit down and have a one-on-one with me. I want to figure out why you're here. How'd you get here? What are you doing to get yourself out? And so I did that. And some people ran from that. So it weeded out a lot of people that weren't actually homeless and didn't want to have that talk with me. But as I did that in the store, the more stories that I felt that I heard, it was just a common theme. Two things: one, mental illness. They were so, you know, they were so mentally ill and mentally impaired that they couldn't function in society. So this is their last resort, or the system in itself. They were stuck. They couldn't go get a job because if they got a job, then their check quit coming in, and they couldn't afford to come off their medication for, you know, 2 weeks because they'd go clinically insane. You know, they'd go insane. And so there was two reasons. And so therefore I was like, what? There's got to be a better answer. And so for me, that's what kept me up at night. That's what I struggled with. And that's where I was like, who is going to give these people a second chance? How can we fix this issue? How there's got to be more to life than sleeping under the bridge and begging for food every day. And a lot of them are okay with it. And I'm going, no, like it's America, you know, like you can start today and develop a life for yourself. So, now I've kind of taken in one. You kind of do for one what you wish you could do for all. Ozzy was homeless. He worked for me. Long story short, he lived with me for about 5-6 months. Helped him budget, helped him get his phone turned on, got him an apartment, helped him budget, pay rent, got him a car, helped him, understand what that looks like too, all while giving him a raise. So now he has a car insurance, an apartment, and he was in 22 different foster homes. Just was stuck, just in a system, couldn't get out, was living downtown. All his friends were, only friends he ever made was playing Pokemon Go. He would tell you that. I mean, that was just how he met people. But he was living downtown. I don't, if you want to hear more about his story, people can call me, but his story is extremely admirable. Now he lives well on his way, on his feet, and, he'll have a life now. Jason, schizophrenic, stays with me 2 or 3 nights, every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe once a week, he comes stays with me. Schizophrenic, so he paces the floor all night long. So I struggle with having him stay with me because I don't get much sleep. But, we provide space for Jason to sleep. And, it's not very safe for me to say to the public where he sleeps or what that looks like. But, we provide places for him to stay and legal, obviously. I don't want it to come across like that. But, since the other homeless people don't necessarily like it that I've taken them on, they're very territorial, and so that I've really taken a liking to Jason. I'm trying to get him out the best that I know how. They're not too fond of him right now, so it's just it's crazy, man. And so Jason's my guy, and so that's what I did before this. I went and grabbed him a cup of coffee, and so he's just he stays around the restaurant. If you see Jason, he doesn't need money. He just needs a hello. They just want somebody to listen to, talk to them, treat them like humans. That's pretty much all they need. So.
Why do you do this for people? I mean, you don't know anybody anything. Is there a reason?
It's selfish. It's extremely selfish. I feel the best about myself when I'm doing for others. It's just people, I hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, it's so admirable. I'm like, y'all don't understand. Like, this is me. Like, this is who I am. Like, it's from the outside looking in. I'm sure it looks great and all, but selfishly, I feel the best. I sleep better at night knowing I did something for somebody. And I always have these moments, if not me, then who? If I'm not going to, who the heck else is going to spend time with Jason Kincaid, schizophrenic, been out of sight, there are days where I'm sitting on the patio and he's bawling, looking at me going, I'm always going to be like this, aren't I? I'm always going to be like this. And I'm going, Jason, no. Number one, as long as I'm above ground, you have hope. And I can tell you first thing that I am not even remotely the same person that I am since you walked into my world. So you've changed my life, 100%. And it's in those moments that you're so appreciative as to why you do what you do. You're just giving people a way out. You're giving them a tunnel. You're giving them a little bit of light that they never saw coming. And I'm all about surprises, man. I just want to jump into someone's world and show them a little way that they never really even dreamed of. And so it's selfish, man. I do. I feel a lot better about myself when I'm doing for others. And fortunate enough for me, the service industry allows me to do that every single day, So.
Those are 2 really beautiful stories, man. It seems like it's something you're passionate about, really kind of helping people.
Yeah.
Do you think when the pizza business kind of calms down, you kind of get more established, you have a staff you can trust while you're gone, do you think you kind of do more of that?
Oh yeah, I will forever build, help. Yes, like I said, that's where I get my fulfillment from. And some people want to make $1 million. I want to give away $1 million, and so that doesn't come now. You have to work to get to that. If you want to give away $1 million, that means you better have $2 million in the bank, right? Yeah. So for me, it's I just want to give it away. That's where I get the most fulfilled, honestly. I mean, and I mean that when I say it. The money that I spend on Jason right now, I don't have by any stretch of the imagination, but I sleep better at night. I just do. It's just and so yes, after this, I tell people all the time, restaurants are a short game and they're the long game. Short game, this is what's going to provide, the capital for me to kind of have this life in between to kind of help and do and kind of gear towards, my right brain, the creative side. And then I want to retire with restaurants, nice restaurants where me and my family can go hang out and not really worry about whether they're making money or not, but still have the same culture that Sheldon Restaurant Group has always had. But yeah, and really get into the aesthetic of a restaurant and the plates and the right brain creative side. I think I'll do that anyways in between, but I won't just be solely relying on restaurant. I'm not just going to be a restaurant guru the rest of my life. I'll have restaurants because it's allowed me to serve people. But yes, there's so much stuff in between, that I want to do. So
Would you say your upbringing kind of inspires this? I mean, I know you kind of had to work for what you have, but like growing up, you never really had to worry about like where you're gonna sleep the next day. If you're gonna have anything to eat, would you kind of
absolutely
agree with that?
Maybe. My upbringing more than anything was it's all I knew. Somebody asked me that the other day. They were like, was the fact why did you want to become an entrepreneur, or did your family or something, did it influence? I forget how the question was worded, but I just said, listen, all I knew was a dad that went to work for himself, my mom that went to work for him, and I really didn't have anyone around me that was really working for the man or going to work and working a 9 to 5. I just didn't. So I really didn't know any other way, honestly. But absolutely, I look at my upbringing and I think about how good I had it. Yeah, like what's keeping everyone else from having that life, And it's a great question because I was extremely fortunate and I had an upbringing that not many people had, and I get that. But I think it's important for people like me to understand that not many people had that upbringing, and to where much is given, much is expected kind of thing. And I think it's a huge motivator. I've never really had to think about it, but now that you said it, absolutely. I would love, I mean, I didn't have to think twice about where I was laying my head down. I knew I was forever going to have a place. And that's essentially who I want to be for everyone else. If their place falls through, you got mine, And so yes, absolutely.
We've researched a little bit, and we've heard about like a clothing line. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just piggyback kind of off of the homeless. I've always wanted to gear things, because I own a business. You get kind of thrown into the business guy, businessman, entrepreneur, which is great. It's I'll own it every day. I'm all about it. But I'm more of a creative. If I had to really get down to my core on who Spence is, I love to create, and more of a right brain kind of guy. And so I've always just, one of my big ambitions is to have one of my own clothing lines. I would love to wear clothes that I design myself, or something my comfort level, or something I think would fit for everyone else. So with that, I couldn't just do it to make money. That's just not who I am. And so for that, I was like, well, what's the cause? What's the purpose behind this? And then, going back to that really good advice I got of what keeps me up at night, the homeless is really crushing me. So yeah, I haven't really told anyone. All I've done is created a handle on Instagram. And tomorrow morning I go and I think we'll print 5 or 6 shirts, and we'll just start wearing them, and just kind of get the feedback on what people think. And, we've been working with different designers out in California, and, but essentially the brand's called Almost Home, and it's just, it's a message of so much hope for anybody. Right now, it just happens to be Jason and the homeless and getting him back on his feet. And so obviously the proceeds of the first batch of clothing line, maybe it's the Jason line, I don't know, is going to go to him. And we're going to figure out, what that looks like. And we haven't really hashed out a lot of the logistics, but it's just a message of hope for everyone, no matter what you're going through, where you're at. Just know we're almost home. We're almost there. And faith is a big deal for me, but the beauty behind the brand itself is home can be anything for anyone. Doesn't have to. You don't necessarily have to believe the way I do to buy into the brand. It's like, listen, home for me is a safe place, and I don't care if you're a drug addict or you're homeless, or dude. All I want to do is grab you out of the hand and let you know that, hey, we're almost home. We're almost there. Stick in there. Let's do this. And so that's essentially how the brand came to be, and the name. It's just a message of hope, man. And I hope that the people that wear it and the people that wear the clothing feel like home for people. That they can be a soft spot, to land. And so essentially that's what it is. We haven't really marketed it or done anything crazy. We're just kind of letting it happen organically. I think the founder of Tom's had a really good quote. He just said, start small, do it right, and growth will come. And that's kind of how we're doing it. And so it's going to be a brand that gives back 100%, and see where it goes. So But a lot like you guys have inspired me, honestly. We talked about it, and a month later, here we are. I've been talking about this clothing line for probably 2 years. Finally, I said, I'm just doing it. I'm gonna call Blue Cotton, and I'm gonna print shirts. That's what I did. I paid someone way too much money to create a design, and they created the design, and I called Blue Cotton. I was like, hey, bring me 7 shirts, and I want to feel them. Yeah. Because I'm probably going to cut them anyways to make them, like, cool, I just want something that I can cut easily. Sorry, Blue Cotton. Yeah, that I can design. Designer spins over here. And so I essentially, tomorrow morning I have a meeting at 9 o'clock at Blue Cotton, and we'll print shirts, and I'm just going to wear them. And we're going to see what people think, or, what does that mean? What's that? Just kind of get feedback that way organically. And, if people, once we put it out, people start saying, I want a shirt. How do I get a shirt? Then it's probably time we order 15, 20 more, and then create a business model for ourselves. So
You said you got an Instagram handle?
we do. Yeah. Almost Home Clothing. Yeah. Go follow it. Almost Home Clothing.
It'll be on the screen. So.
Yeah, we have all 12 followers right now. So
We're
we're doing big things. 3 more now, 15.
Yeah, 100%.
And so man, I'm just kind of, it's private, and it's just I just wanted to grab the handle before more than anything.
Yeah.
Before it got taken. And so I just created it, and we've got one logo posted on it, and I probably won't use the logo that's on the actual circle, but it fit with the circle. And so I'm excited for the next. I'm excited to the next chapter for me. And like I said, man, I appreciate you guys for having me so much, and you have no idea what therapy is for me to reflect on the things that we've done as a company and where we're headed, and it really allows me to align my thoughts. It really, really does. So you guys, I wish you guys so much success. Honestly, I'm going to push you guys as much as I can, and I really, really am.
We appreciate you coming, man. You seem like you're really,
for sure,
really tied into some stuff, man.
Yeah.
So take some time out of your day to come see us.
Oh gosh, man, no.
appreciate it,
This
man.
is why I do what I do. I just want to help. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't do stuff like this. So I appreciate you guys, and you guys, feelings are mutual. You guys all seem down to earth, really cool guys, and I appreciate what one of you guys bring to the table. So, I'm looking forward to coming out. I'm gonna push this thing and
Appreciate it,
see
man.
what happens.
Before we end it, we want to do the Time Was 10. So what that is basically we asked this just 10 questions. They're just real
Wrap
quick
it. All right,
answers.
quick. Boom.
And they're the same questions for every guest, so it's kind of a just for
dope.
fun
Just the
thing.
you thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I'm all
you.
in.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. So if you had to work, but you didn't need the money, what would you choose to do?
Oh, I'd be a musician. I'd be a rock star. Yeah.
If you could disinvent one thing, what would it be? Material item, I guess.
Disinvent?
Disinvent.
Cell phone.
If you could meet one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
One person, dead or alive. I mean, Jesus. Sorry. I cheated.
All right. If you had one piece of advice for the younger generation, what would it be?
Humble yourself. Quick.
If you had all the money in the world, what would be the first thing you buy?
Something for my mom. I don't know what. Whatever she wants at the time. Whatever she wants that day, she's getting it.
Who would you say inspired you most growing up?
My dad.
Who's your favorite artist right now? Musical or whatever?
Oh wow, man. I have a lot. My music. I'd say Luke Combs is up there just because what he does. I don't know. I've always been a John Mayer guy too. So like my music spectrum is crazy. I'm trying to think of it. That's too kind of hip hop. I love Justin Timberlake. I'm trying to give you a rapper right now. Who am I listening to in the car? On the way over here, I was listening to somebody. I love the baby. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it weird though that I really like him more on features than I do like his songs?
No,
Like-
I might go
Like
with
when
one
he,
artist.
like when he's featured on
Yeah,
songs,
it's-
like just hearing him is like a little snippet,
yeah.
like oh. But then like one whole song is like I don't know, maybe a little much. But I love the baby. Yeah.
I like
But
him a
but
lot,
I like his new album.
All right. What do you think the most common reason people give up is?
Somebody has fed them something that's BS and they bought in. Somebody they've gotten advice from the wrong person and they bought into it. I think that's probably the number one reason most people quit, because somebody told them they couldn't and they believed it, and that's BS.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Gosh, dude, the other day, I got ran out of the house for this, but I was like, well, it would be cool to talk to animals. Like,
Yeah, that
Like that would be cool. Like, but somebody was like, better than flying, like better than like being invisible. I'm like, okay, you got a point, but like, what if I'm the only Dr. Doolittle around here? Like, what if I could talk to all the animals? Like, yo, why won't my dog shut up? Like, can you just come over and tell him to let me sleep? Oh yeah, I got you, fam. I'm on my way. Like that. I think that'd be dope.
All right, last question. What's one thing you can't live without? Material item.
This is gonna be like the one thing that I said I wanted to disinvent. One thing I can't live without.
Like, let's say you going across the world. What's one thing you bringing that you always bring?
Dude, I'm a huge peanut butter and jelly guy. Like I love peanut butter and jelly. I can't go a day without peanut butter and jelly. I mean, I can go a day. That's stupid. What would I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I have to work out. Is that weird? Like I can't go a day. Not I can go days without it, but like I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
I have to
Feel a little off.
Yeah, like I have to. Yeah, I have to sweat out all the bad stuff because I'm not even the same person. I just feel like working out, and that for me is just a big thing.
Too.
Yeah, I gotta do it. I gotta do it.
So 120-pound dumbbell. That's what you're bringing.
Oh yeah, yeah. 20. No, I'm gonna do push-ups and stuff on there. I don't have to bring. I'm saving room in my bag. I can do push-ups and sit-ups. So it's smart. I'm thinking outside the box.
All right, man.
And the last thing we're gonna do is
I've got it.
these walls up here. These walls, the clocks up here. Each guest smashes one, and then they'll write a quote and sign their name. So
Love it.
just kind of keep up there.
Yeah.
So
What's your quote?
I have no idea. Sorry. I'm gonna do it when I get done. Do I have to do it on camera?
Yeah, tell the people.
Tell the people
Make
what
sure
my
it doesn't-
quote is.
we don't have insurance, so.
Smash it.
There you go. That's probably the best hit. That's probably the biggest hit we've had.
Oh, dude, I don't.
That's perfect.
I don't
Thank
play.
you guys for watching. Just
Man,
make sure-
thank you guys.
Yeah.
Seriously, thank you.